where we talk about the tiniest of the tiny, microfiction. Now, just a couple of years ago, microfiction would have fallen under the umbrella of flash fiction, and in many cases it still does. But microfiction has really gained a following as a unique and important subset of flash fiction. And for our purposes, we're going to call microfiction about 300 words or less. Although microfiction can be 100 words, it can be 50 words, it can be 6 words. But microfiction is to flash fiction what flash fiction is to the short story. So we're actually going to compress that narrative even more, which is really fun. And one of the things I talk about this week is that you can compress that narrative in any of the same approaches, in any of the same ways that you did when you were writing an original flash fiction piece, a longer flash fiction piece. You can zoom your narrative, you can experiment with the narrative, you can use a found form, you can tell a bedtime story. All of these things work equally as well when you are writing microfiction as they do when you're writing traditional length flash fiction. But I want to take you through an exercise today, and this is an exercise that I do a lot in my sculpting classes and my editing classes, so this is a little hint of where you can go with editing. But I want you to go ahead and stop the video and locate a piece of writing. Maybe it's a piece that you've done during this class, maybe it's a piece of writing you did previously, flash fiction wise, and maybe you're not happy with it, maybe it hasn't turned out, maybe you're kind of struggling with it. So stop the camera and go grab that. Okay, now take a look at the word count of that piece. So whatever the word count is, maybe it's 300 words already, maybe it's 700 words, maybe it's 900 words. Whatever the word count is, I want you to cut it in half. So if it's 900 words, you're going to take it down to 450. And if it's 300 words, you're going to take it down to 150. So stop the camera and go ahead and do that. Okay, great. How was that? For some people, that's really a source of anxiety, right? When you have to cut something in half. So I encourage you to save your original draft somewhere else so that you feel really comfortable chopping, and you can always return to your original draft and not have to worry about it. Okay, but here's what I want you to do. So you've cut it in half, and now you're gonna hate me. I want you to cut it in half again. So if you cut it down to from 300 to 150, you're going to take it down to 75 words. If you started at 900 and you took it down to 450, you're going to take it down again, half by half. So go ahead and shut this off and go ahead and do it again. All right, breathe. You now have 3 different versions of your story. You have your original length, you have a medium length, and you have a tiny microfiction length story. Maybe they're all microfiction length. But let's talk a little bit about that process, because there's 2 techniques that I like to talk about when we're talking about shrinking our text. And it has to do with chipping versus chopping. Chipping versus chopping. So when we talk about chipping, we're talking about weeding out the little words, the one extra word, the phrase. We're kind of pruning our work. When we chop, we take out a whole section, right? Maybe we take out the whole first paragraph, or we start taking out whole sentences. So what often will happen in this exercise is that people will start by chipping. Here's your beloved piece of work. I've just told you to cut it in half, and you're going to very painfully eliminate a word here, ow, ow, ow. Okay, well, I'm not getting to half fast enough. I better start chopping. And it's really a combination of both the chopping and the chipping that will take a work down to where it is really essential. So flash fiction in general, but microfiction especially, we're looking for what is the most essential story. So in that second version or third version, you really had to make some decisions around what has to stay and what has to go or can go and won't affect the story negatively. So when you think about creating microfictions, maybe you're going to create them from scratch, and maybe you're going to take longer pieces and turn them into microfictions, I really want you to try on both the chipping and the chopping. If we rely only on chipping, we may not get there. But that chopping, the bravery that it takes to see that this whole section I wrote can really go, and the meat, the essence, the necessary part of the story remains, is how you will take your work from flash to micro. I've put an example of one of my own stories below that I took through this same exercise so you can see what happens, and perhaps take a look at what changes in each version. And there may be things you really love about version 2. There may be things you really love about version 3. So take a look, give it a shot, let me know how it goes, and I'll see you in the next space.